welcome back to another episode of The Common Theory. And as always, I'm your host, Gator, along with both of the co-hosts today, Rohan and Kunx. Great to have you both here for a change. We've been missing you guys. Kunx, you were out in Orlando last time, having fun with the family.
Yep.
I mean, how was that? How was everything?
Orlando sucks. The weather was great. There was like a whole bunch of people. Yeah, we went in the middle of the week. Everything's still super packed. I'm like, all right, no, I'm never gonna come back here again anytime soon. Jesus Christ, this is awful. But me and the family still had fun. That's all that really matters, right? Like, even though it was a mess, whole bunch of stress, seeing my son's face watching the fireworks, that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
It's not about you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, once you're a dad, you're just like, you have to make a whole bunch of sacrifices for your family.
That's how it goes.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, but at least we ended the weekend super fun with Gator and I doing the PDH podcast, which if you don't want to go watch, the link is in the description.
Yes, definitely. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that a lot. Hopefully you get in there next time with us, Rohan.
I will definitely be there.
But
actually, Rohan's going to join me this weekend on Zipstream, which, again, the link will also be in the description.
But Rohan, how are you doing, bro? How's everything? You're not running 42 miles anymore, right? The shit's done.
Now we're in like the down season, so I get to chill for a couple months, and then January rolls around, and then things get like real crazy for me, running wise. I'll be running a lot, training for April marathons. But it was good. My weekend was good. It was my dad's birthday, so that's why I did not join you guys on the PDH podcast. But celebrating with the old man. He doesn't really drink, but he had a cocktail, which was crazy. Also before noon, which is extra crazy. Good time.
Nice.
Yeah, things have been chill. I played in a CDH event last night and got my ass totally cooked, blown up by Turbo.
The irony.
It's like, aren't you the ROG side player? Like, I don't even know what that means.
Now, I've been leaning into my control tendencies in 60 card Pauper, and as you guys know, I played Malcolm Breaches. I leaned heavy into a control deck and played Tameshi. So I feel like that's actually like
that's spicy.
As a player, that's kind of my forte and my strength in general. I play the slow grindy decks that just want to make the game last forever until I slowly grind you out and win. So I was like, fuck it, let's go, and didn't pay off. But it's okay. Okay. We'll get there next time. But Chris, how are you doing, man?
Oh, bro, work has been kicking my ass. Is the nicest way I could say it. It's been real busy. Season's back in schedule for me, the job that I do and everything like that. So we've been busy to say the least, but haven't been able to get as many games online as I typically like to, but hopefully that'll be changing soon. Everything should be good. We had a few emergencies with lightning hitting and flooding with the king tides and everything, but hopefully, crossing my fingers, all that stuff is in the past right now, so it should be smooth sailing from here on out, and it's not going to be as crazy, so.
Cool.
Yeah, yes, hopefully we should have a lot more weekly games over on our Discord on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know already as it is, I'm going to kind of lead into this before we even start the episode. We have the LFG role is in our Discord specifically, and games have been firing there quite a bit here. And if you want to catch games against us, please hop in there, ping us. We do have nights that we're able to play. I have not been very available recently, but that should be changing here soon. I got a few decks that I'm very, very excited to play. But
I'm just happy you finally have a Dimir deck, which we'll talk about in the future.
Well, I have
it's actually on
decks.
here.
2 Dimir decks, technically speaking. Technically, I have 2. But with all that said, we're going to lead you guys into the episode now, and we're going to be doing the Q4 tier list. So quarter 4, and really happy to bring this to you guys because this one is going to be a little bit different than most of the ones we've been doing in the past, right? We're kind of cutting the fluff. We're trimming the fat, to say. We're getting rid of all of these decks. It's just, they're not showing up. They're not here. They're not there. They're not anywhere. Talking about the decks that are showing up. We're talking about decks that are winning, losing, but at least are making a presence in the format as a whole. and that's what we're going to be doing. I don't even know how else to start, but
yeah, I mean, I think
dive in.
It's a good move, right? Because this way, you, the people, are going to get a tier list that reflects ideally the world in which you're playing and the tournaments in which you're playing.
Yeah, no more pure spy
and you don't have to sit through 4 hours of us yapping.
No sprite dragons.
Maybe you're into that, but yeah.
Well, I mean, like the slippery boggles and stuff like that. Like none of these decks show up to these events. Like, sure, they were a thing of like 2020, right? But like they don't show. I mean, bring it, right? Like that's the thing we always say. Like, bring them to a tournament, right? Like, I'm down. I'd love to see you bring it, play it, see what you can do with it. But like, they're not showing up.
Like, we want to be proven wrong all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, but we see Alexios show up to these events, right? We see the Raels, right? We see the Zadas. I don't see the slippery.
You see the Risen Reefs.
Yeah, I see the Risen Reefs. I don't see the. I don't know what the hell is the mutate one called. I don't even know what it's called anymore at this point.
Parcel Beast.
Parcel Beast. There you go. Bring the Parcel.
Yeah, because we said
right. Like, bring it. So, but until you do, it ain't making it on this tier list. That's With that said, let's start with the spiciness. Let's get into it. Traditionally, I'm just going to lead right off with it, you guys. Traditionally, we have what we called the gatekeepers of the format, and it's the 3 monocolor decks. And these decks are historically have always been kind of like a crucial factor of the format if you want to be successful. And a good way that we've said it in the past is play against these 3 decks. If you could beat them with whatever deck you're bringing to the table, you could become successful in the format. If you cannot beat these 3 decks, you need to look at your deck again. We have a new, we called it the Holy Trinity, but we got a new up-and-comer and it's not even monocolored, so it's like screwing us here royally. I don't even know, like.
It's like the guy was the man in the Iron Mask. If these are the 3 Musketeers, this is the man in the Iron Mask. This is the Keldeo of the legendary swordsman.
It's like the Street Fighter 4 Kings.
Yeah, it's just super messed up. So we have a 4th, so we may kind of lead back into it because we're just going to start with these 4. Let's go through the tiers here real quick. Yeah. Rohan, would you like to actually say what each individual tier means?
Yeah. So we have our classic S and then A, B, C, D list here. So starting with at the top, you've got your S tiers. So these are like the indisputable best decks in the format. They win a lot. Generally, they make your life very difficult. They're hard to interact with, or they win very quickly, or some combination of them. They're also generally very, very consistent. So these are the toughest ones to beat. Followed by the A tiers, which are almost there. They're almost S tier decks, but they usually have a few more problems. They have a few holes in their game plan that aren't as easy to patch up. Either they're a little less consistent, or maybe they are a little less interactive, or can't find their combos quickly, or what have you. They probably have some kind of problem that prevents them from being S tiers. Then you've got B tiers, which they're once again very, very good decks. They just once again struggle to win as much or as easily as your A and S tier decks, and have a few more problems. Usually these problems are going to be a little bit more related to the commander itself, and as we go down through the tiers, they're going to be more sort of commander centric. It's like weaknesses in the commander are going to push things down a further tier versus just like deck holes or like decks build styles. Then your C tiers, which are, you can still win with the C tier. It's going to be a struggle to probably take on a tournament with one. But if you're like a specialist player, a lot of these decks are specialist decks. You're going to be like, if the one person who plays this deck who is really, really good at it, they make the deck look amazing, but give it to anybody else and they're going to struggle. But yeah, if you spend the time with these decks, you can definitely still win. And the D tiers, which, they're not horrible. You can take them to an event, but you're going to struggle a lot. And even if you are a deck specialist, you're still going to have to overcome significant amount of issues from the higher tier decks.
Thank you for that, Rohan.
You got it.
Very much appreciated. And let's dive right back into Scholar of the Ages. I think this is a pretty simple one. Just a quick rundown of what the deck does. It's a high tide deck. It is our most definitive high tide deck we have of the entire format. The play patterns are simple. Make mana, attempt to start winning the game by turn 5. It's clean, it's simplistic. It's 33 islands and a Mystic Sanctuary, depends on which
And a
list
whole
you look
bunch
at.
of mana rocks.
Right? Yeah, a whole bunch of mana rocks. It's like 17 mana rocks on average, depends which list you look at. But the play patterns are simplistic. It makes mana. It does the thing. I like the deck. I think it's a hell of a contender right now in our format. Guys, would you mind if I be as bold as to say this deck, in my opinion, has moved up here recently? And it's an A tier deck now. In my opinion.
I'm curious, like what specific, like what do you think it has changed in the meta that it makes this deck stronger, or did it get some new cards, new toys to play with, or some combination of both?
You can't ignore this deck. So the reason I think this deck got stronger was it used to be one of the decks that sat at the table that was just definitively the best deck sitting there. Well, that no longer is the case. We're moving to a meta that's containing Arabellas. We're getting, in fact, let's just ignore the Arabellas of the world. We're getting to the world to where we have definitive decks now that have been created by the community and members that are honed. So we're not looking at like a Sphinx Summoner list that is just like played once, one random time, and it's just like a pile of 99. The Sphinx Summoner list that we have now is like a dedicated player that has taken this thing to 20 events, won an event, and continues to like shape and create this for the meta at hand, right? So with pilots like this and these decks just being like created and crafted to the best that it could ever be, Scholar moves up in that world because Scholar is one of those lists. And if everything at the table is terrifying, Scholar sits there nicely, right? Because you're not getting 3v1'd anymore. You're just another scary deck at the table. And let's be realistic. The other thing about Scholar is that it's never kind of scary. It just sits there and does nothing against you until you decide to mess with it. It's like, we're just going to take gameplays. Yeah, it plays 6 creatures. Like I think the highest creature count I've ever seen in one of the Scholar lists is 8. Mm-hmm. Like on average, they're 4 to 6 creatures at best, right?
Yeah, if you counter their spells, they just get it back with Scholar or one of the Archaeomancers in the list.
Yeah, so it's a clean play pattern. It's smooth-brained with some of the counter spells and what it has. It's great at protecting itself, but it's negative, and the reason I say it's an A tier, it can't protect its life total. An early Dargo destroys it. An early Gut player destroys it. Arabella can destroy it. It's weak to the aggro decks. But until these aggro decks decide to start coming in numbers, it will prey on the mid-range decks. The slower the format is, the better this deck becomes.
So my argument actually is that I agree. I actually agree with everything you just said, but I feel like the format is getting faster, not slower.
Faster in what way, though?
Well, on 2 axes. One, combos are being found faster. Like we're seeing turn 4, turn 5 wins more consistently with the combo decks with Gretchen, Laylor, and Lillysplash. We've seen turn 5 wins from Lillysplash in back-to-back tournaments. Turn 4, turn 5 wins from Dargo Keddis. We're seeing more consistency as the cards get better and as more people play these decks and understand how they play. And then on the second axis, you've got the aggro deck. So we're seeing multiple Arabellas, multiple Alexioses show up in tournaments, pushing the clock faster. We've seen Keddis Keleth as well show up multiple times now, also pushing the clock faster. Even if these decks aren't winning a lot, they're forcing the other decks to go for wins by turn 4, turn 5, turn 6.
That's actually why I think this deck is getting better. So exactly what you said is the reason, right? Because if the Malcolm Keddis player tries to go first, they're just based upon seed order. I can go just as fast as they can. I used to not in the past with the Scholar deck because I want to wait. But if I have to pull the trigger on turn 4 with the High Tide, I could do it. It's a little bit more difficult with my Snap Line and Forensic Search and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean it's not possible.
Yeah, if anything, you still get rewarded just by using High Tide. At worst, you get it back later.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, you just pray to God someone doesn't have Fairy Macabre, but I think that's a risk people are willing to take.
Fair.
Yeah, like Thraben Charm has been kind of rough for the deck overall, but once again, we're blue deck, right? We have counter spells.
Yeah.
Easiest argument on the planet. Like, if we have to do it, we have to counter it. If we don't, we lose. It is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. But that is one of the crutches of the deck as a whole. But, man, I have been more and more impressed with the deck here, and I would like to hit A.
Yeah.
If you guys want to convince me to put it in B, hit me with something.
Nah, I'm still going to stick with throwing it in B only because of the slow rise of all of these new aggro decks and more faster decks that are pressuring life totals, and Scholar just can't defend itself. I think that balances back down to a B.
Interesting. In the scenarios that I've been seeing, I don't think Scholar is the deck. I mean, I understand it's going to be the one that's open to be pummeled, right? Like the gut player could choose because they don't have blockers to pummel into the ground, right? But I don't think it's ever, how do I say it correctly? It's similar to Laylor Reaver, right? You're kind of making a deal with the devil where you want to not kill them because they have the ability to counter a win attempt on the stack. They have the ability to stop someone from winning the game, right? They're your friend until they're winning, right? Is kind of the way I like to look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the right pod, it's really, really, really good. I do feel like it's going to catch a lot of strays. Decks with combo wins, rather, especially fast ones, are still like the strongest decks, and we're going to see that as we get through this tier list. I think there's a newfound interest in aggro lists that we are seeing. People are building aggro better. They're building them with pingers. They're building them in a way that's hitting everybody at once. And I just think that, like the decks that find it hard to defend themselves, if you are playing like a Spellslinger deck and you don't have the board wipes, and you don't have the ways to like at least slow down those stray bullets, I think it's a rough world.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That's the only reason why, like, if it had better ways to defend itself, sure, we can rate it higher. But because it's missing those tools, I think B is like the perfect place to throw it.
I got one last argument for you guys, which I know this one is not a very good one, but no one knows where to interact with this deck during its win attempts. And I think that's one of the key selling points now. Granted, once it's known, that would be a different factor. But as of right now, I have
exactly. So you still take it from A back down to B. So
yeah, which is fair. So
no, it's what Lotad said in the morning podcast. It just play it like Amulet Bloom players in Modern. You play it for a little bit, win with it, hide it for another year.
Yeah,
take down a tournament and then let it chill, let it simmer.
All right, I'll go with B. Ron, do you want to take to the next one?
Here we go. We got Larry, but his actual name,
Loyal
Subordinate.
It's so bad. It's so bad because it's like, yeah, Larry. It's just Larry, right? It's our dude. It's our boy Larry. And if I ever hear anyone say the name Larry outside in the real world, I'm like, Pauper EDH? What's up? Low Subordinate, a solid deck. It goes back to what I was saying, right? Like the aggro decks are being built better. It hits the whole table for at a minimum of 3 every turn. Most people don't really do anything about him. They let him live, and he just continues to hurt everybody. It has all the great flickers in the world, and it's got a whole bunch of new toys. A lot of new black cards, and I think you'll see like a lot of the black decks are getting, slightly better, and we have new black decks being added. Larry's solid. It still has the same weaknesses it had before, where if you remove it, if people do gang up on you, I mean, like any list, right? If people gang up on you, you're kind of screwed. But him especially, it doesn't have, as much resilience as either Dargo Kediss or even Scholar. But, it does pack the protection spells for itself. We haven't really seen too much of it lately, but I would dare say that it is either exactly where it was before on the list, or a hair better only because of these aggro lists that are now being built either with pingers or ways to hit the whole table. And Loyal Subordinate is parasitic to that. It reaps the benefits of the whole table getting hit at once. I think it's a solid B tier, honestly. And
wow.
I don't actually totally remember if we put it in C or B last time. It might have been.
We put it in B. Last time.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, if it was, I was going to say, if it was in C, I think it moved up to a B, just by because it was probably at the top of C, and it just that the meta changing, the slight meta changes since last time have moved it up. But I don't think it's an A tier deck. I don't think it has the resiliency because once it gets stuck, because Larry's been bolted a few too many times, things become very difficult for you.
My only pushback to that is that Arabella is coming in hard, and we have a few other decks, and the life linking thing is becoming more relevant now, fair. Which forces you to focus on only that player specifically, whoever that player may be, right? And the reason, you guys are going to love this one, Heir Apparent, right? Heir Apparent is real, and if these cards begin picking up play, we're going to see more Soul Sisters. We're going to be seeing more Suture Priests, more Blood Seekers, right? All of these little life gaining, Foundations gave us a bunch of these life gain creatures, right? More versions of Lunarch Veteran and things of that nature.
Yeah.
If decks continue to apply those, Larry really, really struggles against those.
Fair.
So I'm very cautious about it. And honestly, I think actually Loyal Subordinate is actually going down to a C in my opinion, only because of decks having to conform their game plan to decks like Arabella.
Yeah, that's a good point. The lifelink is real right now. I agree with you there. I was just trying to consider the meta right now and, at this moment, but now Heir Apparent is out. We haven't really seen it do things, but theoretically, yeah, I agree. Heir Apparent's going to be a nightmare for low sub.
Just look at the Abdels and stuff, right? Like that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're also starting to be forced to conform to the Soul Sister plan and things of that nature just to keep their head above water against, just like you said, more aggro decks starting to appear.
Yep.
They have to play cards that are technically undesirable because of the pinger plan and more decks showing up with these, right? I would think Loyal Subordinate goes down to C. I still think if you enter this format, you should play against Loyal Subordinate, or at least play it yourself to see it's a hell of a good metric on how powerful the format truly is. Well, I mean, with all that said, Rohan, are you comfortable with putting it in C over B?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm fully aligned with you there. Actually, yeah. There's a few things I wasn't considering, and you made a lot of good points. The lifelink thing, the new cards that have been added in Foundations, the games that I've been playing against over the past month. I definitely would not want to play Larry into a few of these pods, especially anything with an Arabella. I'd be like, hell no, that would suck so bad.
Well, I mean, let's put her in C.
Yep. Here we go.
And then, Franklin, can you give us the next one of the Holy Trinity, which may become a...
So to round out our Holy Trinity is Dargo Keddis, the mono red aggro deck that puts out a turn 2 Dargo, or turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 Dargo, and then smacks the rest of the table for 7 damage using Keddis' damage trigger. I still think it belongs in B, solely because people love to bully the crap out of this deck for whatever reason, even though it should be your best friend if you're doing damage.
Based on Chris's logic, we played some of that Dargo Keddis into Arabella the other night, and man,
yeah, but this deck doesn't care about Arabella or life totals. This is 21 you.
That's not true. It mattered.
Oh, 16 you. It mattered. 16 you, but yeah.
Sorry, 16 you.
It actually did matter because the smart Arabella player leaves doesn't attack, doesn't swing with everything when Dargo's at the table. You leave 5 guys up. They're like, fine. Trade your Dargo into my board because they're holding a whole grip of 7 that represents another 5-6 dudes. They don't care. It was rough, actually trying to make that happen. And instead what happens is I end up having to, I was swinging Dargo into the Spellslinger, right? Who doesn't have the blockers up, trying to get like ancillary damage on Arabella, but that's not really possible when they're getting that much life. You really do have to swing Dargo straight into her. But at that point, you're just basically trading you're just saying, okay, I'm willing to just trade Dargo out every turn, but do you have the card advantage to really make that happen and the speed to keep up, with the damage that Arabella is putting out of the table plus their life gain? So it actually becomes a very, very tough puzzle to solve.
Yeah, I just feel that like with the backup pinger plan that Dargo Keddis has, you should be able to win that race.
I mean, my argument would be the double strike package. For instance,
you are relying on
there's
that.
A world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a world where you specifically mulligan to it and or conform the list to the current meta a little bit more to have more double strike cards to consistently see them more often.
Yeah.
For the Arabella match specifically, which I don't think is an issue. I just think that's the world we live in. If that's how you need to cater the list to live in this world, the list is just fine. It doesn't lose points, right?
Yep.
I think that's one of the negative points about low subordinate. It doesn't have that ability to Voltron out a deck like Arabella, where Dargo Keddis can. It might not be ideal, but it still has the ability to do it, which I do appreciate that pivot plan. But with that said, where do you think it should go, Franklin? What are your thoughts?
No, I still think it belongs in B. If anything, we start with Dargo Keddis players start main decking that initiative torch that burns all blockers for 2 damage.
Yes.
Just to really incentivize people to not block Dargo.
Yeah, that's actually very, very fair. Yeah. In worst case, I could dig it, right? Because you don't even care if you give the initiative away in the Dargo Keddis match.
No, you're going to get it back eventually, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, that's a fair play. Also, like playing, even potentially considering wipes, even though that might sound like a nombo, maybe worth playing. Both of the 3-mana board wipes.
Well, you could probably play Sulphurous Blast and just main phase it, and Dargo survives with 1 toughness.
You may want to play all 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, right? I do think that the list needs to be maybe relooked at, relying less on 1/1s and going wide to support those wipes, going maybe heavier on artifacts. There's a bunch of tweaks I think that you could make to the list to make it fit the meta better. So yeah, that's a fair point.
I'm also good with B. I still think the deck is in a very good position overall in the meta, even with Arabella's existence. It does assist the deck. Like, I have no problem helping Arabella get the table low and then turning left and going, it's your turn, right? Like, here we go, Arabella. Time to 1v1 against you, and I'm just going to slam my Dargo into you head first, because they do lose their bodies, right?
Yeah.
If you're trading 5 1/1s, that's 5
and the
damage.
1v1
is no longer.
It's not a competition. Dargo just wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I am.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, you force the 1v1.
Yeah, I'm okay with forcing the 1v1 there and going to that world. And realistically, too, like with the way the deck is currently configured, with all like the brute forces and all those, Keddis is still a viable plan to also Voltron with, right? So, I mean, we could pivot to like maybe more equipment, trying to make Keddis a little bit bigger, and or just making sure that Dargo gets through consistently. And so I think the deck is still a
that's the thing that some people. Yeah, and I think that's something some people forget, that Keddis can just swing in and do damage itself.
My list is kind of geared mostly towards that. I play a lot of equipment to make Keddis bigger.
But I mean, are you guys good with B tier?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm good with B tier.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, I will say this. This is one thing I forgot to mention. Dargo Keddis has some like insanely just some auto wins. Very few decks in our format have auto wins, and the few decks that do, I think they're definitely should get mentioned. I mean, if you're playing against some of like the mid-range piles that are like, we're not taking game actions till turn 4 or 5, or kill spells till turn 4 and 5, Dargo Keddis just runs those decks over, just destroys them. So
True.
But
Yeah, but I think it's now time to talk about the creepy doll in the room, Arabella.
We've already been talking about
Yes.
as a comparison to all the decks.
yes, so I mean, one of you guys take it away. Hit this one for me. I'm going to sit back because I want to talk about Sphinx Summoner. So hit this one.
Okay. So I'll take this one too. So Arabella, I think, belongs in A for sure because it's been doing what Dargo Keddis and Larry does by just pinging the table symmetrically for damage, as well as building a wide board, and it can recover fairly well from board wipes because some of them just are like big butt creatures. Mm-hmm. They're just random 1/3s. Like some of the pingers are 1/3s. Tuck Tuck Rumblefort's a 0-3. Yeah, 0-3, right? So you can't just like fiery cannonade them or breath weapon them. You have to actually hit them for like the bigger board wipes. And just the life gain, we've been mentioning it for both of these decks. Or like after a while, the Arabella player is like up to 60, 70 life, and you're like, what happened? I'm getting hit for like 5-10 a turn. Arabella's at like 60. How do we deal with this?
Yeah, it doesn't care about other combat decks unless that combat deck is like a really, really big Dargo, like a big Voltron list that has some kind of evasion.
Yeah, or something that has like a whole bunch of 6/3 unblockable skeletons.
Yeah, sure. It does not like that.
I think we should talk about it a little bit more here. I actually don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, I wish we could talk about more about it, but we already did with a video with Izlain, which you can go watch the video up in the card above.
Yeah, I mean, I think the deck is actually stronger than we thought when we put that video out.
Especially because that was still like the untested, not optimized variant, and then Azros came out with a variant. Izlain has his variant. Aggro Aaron has his like a pinger token variant.
Yeah, and I still think even with all of that, the deck it's still not fully refined. There's still a lot of room. You know, there's still cards that people are testing and figuring out what works best here. Do they need more board wipe protection? Do they not? Do they want to run more interaction? You know,
do they just run more bunnies?
You know, I think the weakness that I've seen of the list is its general lack of interaction. I think actually the resilience is pretty good so far from what I've seen. It's because of a lot of color protection spells, hexproof spells, what have you. But a lot of the players have, you know, cut a lot of interaction to make room for those, plus all of your little guys, right? Not having any answers for when someone's going off on like turn 5 or turn 6 with their Malcolm Keddis deck or Malcolm Breaches, and they're like, "Sorry guys, I don't play interaction." So I think there's room for evolution, which only makes the deck scarier to me, and also heir apparent.
Well, so with all that said, what do you think? You think it should be an A tier?
A for sure.
Yeah,
I say A.
I think it's an A tier deck. I think when it realizes its full potential, I think right now the decks that we're seeing are more like a B tier deck, but it's somewhere in between B and A, and then because of the room to grow, I think it'll become an A tier deck. And as people start learning the play patterns better, because right now they're still learning the deck, and it feels strong.
So that was actually going to be my caveat to you specifically. So I actually think they do have enough interaction. I just don't think they're using it correctly. That's kind of my argument, is because they don't know the play patterns, and they're trying to play it as aggressively as possible, because I do believe like a few of the people that we've seen play the list, I actually do think at least 2 of the lists thus far are honed in very well, but they are misplaying it. Even as an example, as recently as 2 days ago when you were playing that game online with the one Arabella player, they made a misplay by using a stave off. The wrong target. So like that was just a blatant misplay, and the player recognized it, right? So I do believe they have it. They just don't. Their play patterns aren't there yet because they're still very fresh and very new to the deck. So
that's fair.
But yeah, that's why I do believe that they are A tier lists. right now. They just have to get better of knowing why they're doing what they're doing and when they're supposed to be doing what they're doing. Like, do they need to be fully aggressive, or can they sit back and actually play the interaction game, right? Because the list are playing the thunderclaps, they're playing the stave offs, right? They are playing like some of the best. I mean, I saw Franklin get heated debated by an Arabella player the other day.
Yeah, that was miserable.
So they are playing the best interaction spells we have in this format. So it's hard to say, like, how many are they supposed to play, right? Arabella is a deck that specifically, just like Subordinate and Dargo, sets the pace of the game, right? Yeah. You choose to interact with this deck or you lose. The end, right? So with that said, I would definitely say A tier, but agree with you that when the players learn the play pattern, this deck is going to be terrifying. 100%.
Prediction here. I think this deck is just going to be everywhere, and the upcoming tournaments over the next 6 months, you're going to see this deck more and more and more. And it's going to be one of those decks that starts defining the meta. And you're going to have to make specific deck building choices around this deck.
Yeah, I already think it has in the short little time that it's been around. Because the last 3 decks what was the one deck we kept talking about? Arabella.
Yeah.
Easy A, and let's move on to the next one. Franklin saying I only have
one of the oldest decks in
one Dimir deck. Boom, I own 2 now. For the record, see, Sphinx Summoner was my first one. But to be fair, I actually don't consider Sphinx Summoner a Dimir deck. I know that's a very weird thing to say.
Me neither, actually.
It's a weird. It's my artifact deck. Even though it is Dimir colors, it is my artifact deck. I have a lot of really weird cards. In fact, my most you guys are gonna make fun of me for this one. My most recent include is a card called, see if you guys know it, Nim Shrieker. Do you guys know that card by any chance?
Nim Shrieker?
I
Nim
don't.
Shrieker. So Nim Shrieker is from the original Mirrodin, like OG from back in the day. It's a 4-mana 0/1 flyer, and its ability is it gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Okay. So it's just a 4-mana. It's like a filigree 10/1 flyer,
basically.
Yeah, it's another filigree attendant.
Cool.
It's literally just a second copy of it.
Cool.
So it's giant flyer, right? Because the deck pivots a lot to beating your face in with flyers. I really like the deck. It's fun. The problem the deck has is that it tells you what it's doing the entire game. There's no like, I didn't know you didn't have that card. It's just like, play Sphinx Summoner, get Filigree Attendant, play Filigree Attendant, play Cradioplating, swing with 2 creatures, put it on the one you don't block. Haha, gotcha, right? Like, everything it does is very known, but it's still really good. It can pivot. It tutors what it needs to when it needs to. It's able to pivot its tutor point. So, for instance, it has a mirror tutor that tutors different mirrors throughout the list. It has defending tutor, the defender tutor, to be able to tutor for a defender, whatever defender it needs. If it needs the win condition, it could get it. If it needs a blocker, it could get it. If it needs a transmute, it could get it for Ashnons. So the deck is fantastic at being able to pivot, move around, and dictate its play pattern to whatever the table is doing. But it's slow. What's funny is that we've talked about the 4 of the lists we've spoken about thus far. 2 of 4 have won events thus far, and so has Sphinx Summoner. Lobert himself even said it here recently on one of the videos we did that he has not been winning a lot of games with this list, and neither have I. I've actually been getting my ass kicked when I've been playing this deck because I'm being forced to play on the defensive. I don't ever have the opportunity to play on the offensive side unless I have like the nuts. Like if I have any of like the sculptor, like any of these cards that allow me to like Foundry Inspector, right?
Yeah.
My artifacts are one less.
Yeah.
Then the deck is busted, right? You're just like 1 mana artifact rocks. You play like all 3 of them on turn 4. Like, disgusting, right? But even with that said, it does have its issues, but I'll be honest, guys, I'm having a little bit of trouble where I want to put this deck. But truth be told, I think this deck belongs in B. The only reason I say that is that I compare this deck to Abdel Blue quite a bit. Quick spoiler alert, I think Abdel Blue's probably going somewhere in that ballpark too. So what do you guys think?
I haven't really got to see much of Sphinx Summoner lately, but based off everything that I've heard from you and Robert, yeah, I think B might be it, especially if you're getting like triple teamed at this point, just to like get you off the table.
I'm going to have to agree with Franklin. I haven't really seen much of it. Haven't really played against it too much lately. I mean, I trust you and Robert. You guys have been playing the list, so you guys would know best. So
you guys are the subject matter experts on this. We paid you for the consulting hours.
Yeah, I really do think it's a solid B. I can't see this deck being in C. I think the deck is too strong with its pivoting plan of being able to just beat you to death with these giant flyers and the cranial plating. I think that plan is far too powerful to put it below a B. So
sounds good.
But yeah, the next one. We could just skip the next one, guys, if you just want to go past that one, Rohan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roll 2 for 1.
You know what? All right, so it's buy one get one free. So why don't you hit us with it, Rohan? Why don't you hit us with it? Go for it.
Simic combo lists, right? The 2
Simic land and tappers.
Simic land and tappers. There's 3 lists here that are Simic land and tappers. I think the 2, Gretchen and Weavers, they've been around forever. You know them. You love them or you hate them. They're not going anywhere. They're still ridiculously good. Every set they're getting like a couple more toys here and there. I mean, but they're kind of just interchangeable cards. You can choose just slightly different flavors out there of each of these lists. But I mean, let's be real. I think each of these decks are maybe 10 cards different tops. So at this point,
Gator, I think you did the math on this before, right? Earlier this week.
I did. Me and a few different players. So we did the math between my Layla Weaver list specifically and their Gretchen list, and it's 15 cards.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is between each player's different lists. So like all the Gretchen lists, I'd say are 10 or less cards, apart.
Well, they're not even like truly 15 cards though. Different, right?
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you there, but it's like
more,
they're like.
Yeah,
like I have this counter spell, and then they have this different counter spell.
Are you playing Vines?
Yeah.
Or Turn Aside? I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah,
Who cares?
Exactly. I think the lists are functionally like 7 to 8 cards truly different. Like they may play Moment's Peace, and then I play Deep Analysis, like something ridiculous.
Yeah. Some people are on like
the absurdity
on a tangle depending on their meta.
Exactly.
But it's like we're splitting hairs. I think at that point, the decks are insane, right? They're 2 of the most consistent decks in the format. They can win as early as turn 4. They can grind out.
Win as early as turn 2.
Turn 2? Okay, yeah, true.
Yeah,
I think 4 is a consistent early win, Like turn 4.
No, both of them. Both of them can win turn 2. They both have turn 1. Yeah, they both have turn 1 Arbor Elf, turn 2 Utopia Sprawl into Freed.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, I don't know what there else to say about them. They're really good. They're incredible. They're still incredible, and people still bring them to tournaments, and they still win. So if you want just a really consistent tournament deck, pick one of those.
Yeah.
Pick Gretchen if you want. Pick Gretchen if you want resiliency. Pick Weavers if you want slightly more speed.
Yeah.
My only caveat is, Layla Reaver deck, if built correctly, I would argue, is the biggest mana deck we have in the entire format. You can't keep the deck down. It's why it's an S tier list.
Yeah, like how many decks in this format can you say win off of immobilizing ink?
Yeah,
not just free, immobilizing ink.
Yeah, exactly. So like Gretchen, Weavers, there's not much to say, even though like they're freaking insane decks. Like you want to win a tournament, pick up one of those two decks, go win a tournament.
Yeah, and they're so consistent that you don't need to have. I mean, obviously you should play and test your decks before taking to a tournament, but I think both of these lists are lists that if you have played a decent amount of Magic before, you can pick them up pretty quickly and understand how to like what the play patterns are pretty fast and take down a lot of people with them, as opposed to like a Malcolm deck takes some like a lot more dedication.
With that said, let's move on to the next one. Franklin, you want to take us with this one? I know you're a big fan of this deck specifically, so.
Yeah, so Lillysplash Mentor is also another Simic kind of land and tapper deck. It generates a butt ton of mana to just flicker either Peregrine Drake or an Archaeomancer or some other way to just find your way to win. It can drag out all of the lands out of your deck, and you can do whatever you want after that. You're only drawing gas. Because Lillysplash does say only at sorcery speed.
Yeah,
it does.
It's a
small
that
crush.
One little phrase just like changes the deck so fundamentally. It's so unfortunate.
Yeah,
it is, where people have like a larger window to interact with it. I still think it's a strong deck. I know we have like 2 pilots who are playing the deck and bringing it to tournaments. I will still sadly throw it into C tier until we see a much more better development for the decks.
I actually think that's a perfect. I actually think C tier is perfect for it because what the deck does offer, it's great at protecting itself. Right, Lillysplash, that creature's no bitch. Like that's a 4/4
for some reason.
Yeah, it's huge. So like, it's a hard sell that. And so what this deck is great at is defending itself. Like Seagate Oracle, Peregrine Drake. You got all these 3 booties, right? Like just lingering around. You know, these random untappers that are like 1/2s for some stupid reason. And you got 4/4 big Papa just sitting there protecting your life total. So the deck can defend itself at least, unlike other Simic piles that can't really. So I think C tier is great. It does have, that what you talked about earlier, Rohan.
Yeah, the sorcery speed.
The problems. Well, no, just like the different tiers and stuff like that. This is one of those overwhelming issues that this deck can't overcome ever, no matter what.
Yep.
But I do like the list, and I do want to see more of it.
They always get at least 1 win in every event they play.
Yeah,
they get 1,
which always makes me happy.
It's like round 1. They win round 1.
Yeah,
and people are like, "Wait a second, no."
Yeah. But with that said, you want to take us away, Rohan, with the TPI?
Yeah, Third Path Iconoclast. Also a really, really, really solid deck. Not a lot has changed for this deck since last time. I don't even know. Has it gotten any new tools? Maybe like
just a couple more thrills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's if you played those to begin with.
If
most
you
of us
them,
don't need to.
Yeah. But I mean, it's solid. I mean, this is a really solid deck. It's performed really well in tournaments. I think one thing that sets this particular deck apart from a lot of the lists is that there are sort of 2 very distinct ways of building it that have both been pretty successful. One is sort of like a more combo route, and the other is like a combo-less straight pinger route. Depending on like what flavor you want to go for, are both pretty good. A lot of decks that decide to not play the combo in them generally make themselves weaker, but because of the nature of this particular commander, because it's turning out so many bodies, you can really lean into that and really make it a more commander-centric deck, and it's still very, very strong. That's the version of the deck that has actually won the most events. So
I'd make an argument that the non-combo variant of the list is actually a bit outdated at this point, right? It's similar to Dargo and Kediss, right, where it needs to adapt to the current meta. Mm-hmm. And I think without a combo, I don't think the deck's actually viable at all.
Really?
Because it's so I know that sounds like a hot take here, but because of decks like Arabella and other decks that are in the format now that are like just kind of like running around generally, more aggro decks, you're going to, being a slower deck, because TPI inherently is slow no matter how you build it. With that said, you need to slow the game down to a certain extent no matter what, right? You have to set up your pingers, you have to set up your control plan, you have to set up your TPI to get your triggers, Sometimes if you had a combo outlet in the deck of some sort, whether it's Ashnod's Altar or Peregrine Drake, whichever one you choose to play, that gives you the pivot point to go, everyone tapped out, I could win right now, especially in a time constraint environment like the tournaments that we're playing in, right? The older variants don't have this outlet, are just trying to drag the game. And how are you supposed to kill Arabella at 70 life, right? Like, how are you dealing with the Sphinx Summoners flying beaters in the air, right? They got 3 10-1 flyers, and you have 40 1-1 ground pounders, right?
Yeah, and you can't realistically counter everything everyone does. So
yeah,
especially not in this list.
Yeah. So sometimes you need to care more about yourself, and I think that's kind of where we're getting at here in the meta, right? Like, how are you supposed to be competing with some of these other lists that are out there right now? I would kind of make an argument that I think the combo variant is going to be soon the one that's going to push itself to the top of the TPI gauntlet.
What I'll say to that is that I think if you're trying to play those combos, I think there's better commanders for them.
Yeah, you're in Izzet colors, bro. This play, we have better Izzet commanders. That's my only argument.
I mean, I really do think the Ashnod's variant of the TPI list is very good. One of our locals down here plays it, and that deck makes me have to play certain other decks, and has, like, the reason I quit playing my Raft deck was I could not beat it. I could never win a game against it. It was just very depressing because I bought. Actually, I have them right here. I could demonstrate what I did. Let's check this out, guys. Here's a quick little show for you guys. Here's this giant stack of cards, right? So there's my RAF 1, my RAF 2, my RAF 3, one of every art, and that's my good luck Vaporeon. But that's the giant stack of all of my tokens that I bought for RAF 2. And depressingly, that deck beat the crap out of me, and I could never play the deck.
Yeah, so I was going to say the funny irony about you not being able to, of Raph not being able to beat TPI is I don't think TPI can beat Arabella, like you were saying, because one of the things I was talking to in our Discord server was TPI has to trade the tokens, but it needs the tokens as resources for either all the convoke spells, which I forgot the actual name of the mechanic.
That's my argument, though, right? Like what you're alluding to is the deck needs to change. It doesn't have the choice. It needs to, like, if you can't keep your creatures for these convoke spells, if you can't keep your creatures for, like, shared animosity and all these spells that you're attempting to keep them for, you need to change what you're doing to adapt to the way the meta is conforming itself to. So can it change? I do think the deck can change. So especially in Izzet, I think the deck easily can change. Where do you think this deck should go, you guys?
I was thinking C, even with the combo variant.
Ooh, that's rough.
So
that's
yeah,
rough.
I think it's at the bottom of B personally, only because like I don't necessarily see, if we're saying C tiers are commanders that have significant issues that are inherent, that are like insurmountable. I don't know if it necessarily fits that metric.
Ooh, okay. So let me set you on that then. All right, here we go. I'll make life super simple. Mm-hmm. If Arabella and these aggro decks do begin to start taking the format, inherently decks like Malcolm's and other lists will start playing cards like Electrickery, will start playing cards like Breath Weapon.
Already do.
And if these decks... but that's the point though, right? Like, you will see these cards. I mean, you said it earlier yourself, right? Maybe you start playing like Sulphurous Blast and Dargo Keddis just to start blowing away the hordes of creatures. What happens to TPI? It incidentally is getting hit throughout all of this, right?
That's fair.
So,
and TPI only poops out one once.
Yeah, so if that's the case, this deck inherently will get worse. So I personally like it in B right now, but I think it could fall as low as D if it chooses not to adapt and it could even fall off the list. But I just think the commander's inherently too powerful to fall off the list at any point, including it isn't is it, which is one of the best color scheme, or one of the best colors in my opinion. So I think it's a solid B for now, but we have to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm okay with them B.
All right, Franklin, you want to take your commander? Actually, you know what? Rohan and you both did a deck tech on this one, so, you know.
Yeah, so speaking about decks that have to change, Abdel Blue, the variant that we have working together, has Ashna's Altar in it, because it's kind of forced to have it now. We had it in A tier last time. Previously it was in S, because again, it was one of the scariest decks in the format, but now everyone just looks at Abdel and goes, hold up, we'll let Abdel resolve. On your ETP, we'll blow it up. Yeah. And I'd go like, why do you do that? I wasn't gonna eat anything. I'm going to just make it a 1/1. I was just gonna eat one thing and use Abdel to kill the Arabella player because I have an unblockable Abdel. Please let the Abdel resolve. Please, for the love of Christ, let it resolve. That was where I'm at this point, where I'm telling people, let Abdel resolve so I can kill someone in 4 turns.
Yeah, the deck needs to change significantly. I'm in the process of making some major changes to mine that I'll be testing soon, but it involves like basically not relying on flickering Abdel for value, like doing it rarely and running like, instead of running all the flickers, running like 4 of the best ones, and really going back to a more control deck, like playing way more counter spells and using just like higher quality cards in the other slots, and basically treat it as like a pure combo list, right? And Abdel is just an out.
Yeah, that's why we have Candlekeep Sage in the 99 now, just so to kind of punish people for killing Abdel.
Yep. Yeah, we recently did that with ours as well. If you guys want to join our Discord, once again, definitely hit us up in there, because we are working on a list. I actually been working on my Blink Upon a Time variant, one of the original lists from back in the day, and it's we're going as far in the tank as adding the 4 mana rocks. In fact, it's actually taking a few pages out of Scholar's deck and how Scholar's play pattern is and whatnot. So I like it a lot more. It went from 12 rocks to 17. So I really like this plan of, it doesn't matter if you counter it or kill it, I'm going to play it every single turn of the entire game if you think you could stop me. Good luck. Just brute force it through. But also, similar to what you're talking about, Rohan, more of a control deck than it's ever been before as well, with just adding more counter spells, adding more removal.
More removal. So, yeah, good, strong. Yep. There's a lot of really good removal now in Azorius, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Thraben Charm and everything.
Thraben Charm's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, if we're able to loop Thraben Charm forever, I'll be happy. I'll name every single mode multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I even thought of Last Breath.
I mean, it's good. You could even hit your own creatures for that 4 life, so not against it.
Yeah.
But with that said, how the mighty have fallen, I'm going to say B.
I think it's a high B.
What do you guys think?
Yeah. Really high B.
I think the decks. I think it's only in front of TPI at this point.
Oh, really?
That's yeah.
Wow.
Sphinx Summoner and Sphinx Summoner at least has flying beat sticks like Abdel.
Yeah, but Abdel's unblockable sometimes.
Sure. Like
maybe that's
that,
how about maybe Voltron Abdel.
Yeah.
Gator, how about you make me happy and talk about the better Abdel list?
All right, fair.
Oh, stonks. We're gonna go for straight stonks.
Abdel, Agent of the Iron Throne. My last 5 games with Abdel Blue, I won 0. My last 5 games with Abdel Black, I've won all 5.
And that's not even including Heir Parents.
Yeah, it's not including Heir Parents. It's not including any of that jazz. It's just straight up the old school list. Abdel Black is sauce.
Very strong.
It plays the Edict creatures. It could combo with the Edict creatures. It's the only deck I've ever played in the format where I actively snuff out my own commander to recast it or play an Omen of the Dead to bring it back and then loop.
This deck has gotten the most amount of new toys of any deck.
Yes.
Was it got a Curse Marauder, Thraben Charm,
Viscerator's Insight,
Tithing
like
Blade.
It's just
all the plunders,
Tithing Blade,
and now Heir Parent.
I think this deck is a undisputable A tier.
Absolutely.
Like just 100%.
absolutely.
There's no arguments.
The fact that you can swing Abdel and the tokens and just create a weird prisoner's dilemma. Go ahead, block Abdel, kill it. I get all the stuff back. Go ahead, kill the tokens. Either you take the damage or the rest of the table takes the damage.
Yep. I think this deck eats the best out of any deck in a heavy pinger world.
I mean, yeah, easy A, and let's move on to the next one, Franklin. I know you know this one very well because we just recently did a podcast about this card.
Yeah, this is Brad's favorite deck and Agro Aaron's favorite deck for a while he was taking a short little vacation over there. But this is Minthara. Minthara, I really enjoy it. I think it's a pretty strong B. Was it strong in B? At worst, it's probably super high C as well. The only thing that really holds back Minthara is that it's buff with the experience counters whenever her permanent leaves the battlefield. Doesn't buff her toughness. Doesn't buff the other creature's toughness. But that's fair, because if not, you get like an entire board of a billions. So that's still a fair trade-off. So he still creates this weird dynamic of, I have giant creatures that will swing in at people, and you have really good flyers as well. And no one can really kill Minthara either because she has infinite ward.
B tier, dude. You're really, wow.
I will glaze the crap out of Minthara.
Okay, all right. I can't see this being B at all, but okay. What do you got first, Rohan?
Yeah,
I'll let you go first.
I think the deck is super, super cool. I think it's a sick deck. I think the commander has just like a ridiculous amount of text on it. It's like all so many keywords. It's kind of ridiculous, and that's really sick. But I think it has some glaring weaknesses that I think are very difficult to overcome. I mean, it's really cool, but it's really clunky. I mean, if it was just a little cheaper to cast, I would be way higher on it. It's just slow. It's a slow game plan. It's really trying to grind. I don't think it has the tools to support the type of grinding gameplay that you need to have in this type of meta. Which, as we mentioned before, I think the meta is getting faster, and you need to have answers quickly. You need to be able to pivot into a win also fairly quickly, and I just don't know if this deck has that. You know, you might put a bunch of answers in it, but then you're kind of weakening what Minthara wants to do. Kind of have to make choices based off of that. It's a weird one. I feel like it's more of a C. So
here's my thing with this deck. I'll make it super quick, super simple. I think this deck only gets better with time. I think it's a D tier deck right now. Not trying to be mean to the deck. I think the deck is good. But the reason I say it's a D tier deck currently is that it struggles to just win the game. Here's the caveat. Daily Dispute, all of those styles of cards, Fanatical Offering, have juiced this list.
Yep.
And Wizards will continue to print these cards, and this deck will only ever get better. Mm-hmm. So the faith I have in the list is there, and I think the list will get better over time because it only has been, and that's what it's been doing currently. And it's been demonstrating that once upon a time, we would never look at this card at all. And now it's here, and we're even talking about it, right? So I think it's a D tier deck only because it hasn't been seeing play in a lot of tournaments as of yet. The one tournament that Brad played it in, me and him both played against a freaking on-curve turn 4 Pestilence with mana available. Worst case scenario for both of
Lord,
us.
yeah, that is.
So I was playing Wrath, he was playing Minthara, right? Both token decks, and our opponent was, of course, curves into a Pestilence, destroys us, right? It's only going to get better, which I think says a lot. And the fact that we're even putting it on the list, I think also means a lot because we do have faith in it. It just needs to continue to demonstrate it because it needs more flyers. It needs to be able to close the game out. Some of the play patterns I've been seeing from it are fantastic. And you got to be honest. What is it? It's not Shambling Goss. Nested Shambler.
Nested Shambler is huge.
It's just busted with this commander.
A late game Nested Shambler goes from one body to like way too many squirrels. And then you can just overrun a player with just the squirrels. Exactly.
But with that said, I'd like to put it in D. So we have a B, a C, and a D. So I guess if we compromise, we can hit it with a C. We meet in the middle.
I'm okay with either D or C.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even if it was C, it would be at the end of C for me. I'm actually okay.
Yeah,
I'm
so
actually
then
okay.
you know what?
I'm actually okay with D because I also haven't seen this deck win. All these other decks I've seen win. And even the other C tier decks I've seen win quite a bit, actually. Mm-hmm. And this is not a deck
then we can just make it the king of D or the queen of D tier.
Yeah. I mean, I have faith in this list. I do think it is only getting better. And it has only been getting better, and it's gotten good enough to show up here to begin with. So I'm very excited to see how much farther the deck does get.
Fair enough.
But you want to take us away with this one, Rohan?
Sure.
Alexios.
Mr. Alexios, our format's slicer. This is a really, really, really sick card. I think when we all saw it, we're like, oh, hell yeah, we got slicer in our format. And, we recently had an episode where we talked about this deck showing up in a recent tournament, two different styles of lists, but kind of doing a lot of the same thing. But, you have options with him. Either you want to go more Voltron or you want to go a little bit more control. You've got different ways to support him, whether those are with more auras and equipment or just a ton of mana rocks. If you just want to, he's going to get removed, you can recast him. It's still I feel like it's still a little unproven though. I want to like it, but I feel like maybe this is just a me thing. I'm personally not really hot on mono red commanders that have CMCs of 4 or greater in general. I think that's a glaring weakness. And I do feel like the 1 mana makes a humongous difference. If it was 3 CMC, I would be wildly hot on this deck, and I would have already built it.
Where would you put it then? With that said, where do you think it belongs?
I don't think it's a D tier list. I think I would put it in C.
I would agree with you
because
I would agree. With you.
It's quite good. When it does its thing, very well, and it becomes very difficult to deal with for the table, especially because we never had a commander that does what it does, and you do have to play around it. But in the wrong pod, it just gets housed, and it is a bad time.
Well, yeah. So you kind of alluded to it. So it sets the pace of the game, right? Would you agree with me?
Yeah.
So you choose. Here's the problem, right? If you are a player at the table and you go, I won't mulligan to remove this card, but then your other opponents also think that same way.
Yeah.
You all just lose the game.
Auto lose.
Right?
Yeah.
You just auto lose the game, right? But then you have the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's I'm mulling to removal, they mull to removal, they mull to removal. This does nothing.
Yep.
Ever. Right?
Yeah.
So it has those polarizing matches where I do think it does belong in C tier.
Mm-hmm.
Because, be honest, I do think it's pretty gas, but it does have that glaring issue.
Yeah, I feel like it's very much like Lillysplash in that way. Really
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I still have a lot of faith in the deck.
Yep, me too.
Yep.
Me too. Franklin, do you want to hit us with a Rael?
So, Rael. I don't know how I feel about this because we usually see the mid-range version. I know there's a very strong combo variant that exists out in the world. We've heard about it, little whispers of it coming to my ear every once in a while.
Yeah, Rohan, why don't you tell us about that one?
Yeah. I haven't updated it in many months.
What are the problems the list has? How about that one?
Yeah. So it's slow. It's a very slow deck. The commander itself it's not a real engine. It
just gives you the initiative.
But for the initiative to be a real engine, you have to hold on to the initiative. So with the right build, it does become easier to at least trigger the initiative on your turn almost every turn. But you're still giving it up to other people. You're still giving your opponent's resources, and you're saying, "I'm okay with doing that." And if you give the wrong deck the wrong resources, you lose. You lose the game. So that's a tough spot to be in, So you really have to play a very tight control game, and you have to play this it wants to do a lot of things, right? It needs to play a control game because you're going to give up the initiative. You just have to be okay with that, and people are going to get resources, which means you have to stop their stuff. You also are playing an aggro game because you need to take it back. You need to take the initiative back, so you have to hit people. You can flicker Rilsa as well, but you only have a certain number you have a very finite amount of flicker spells, so you have to use them very wisely. Yeah, the deck wants to do a lot of stuff, and I think it prevents the deck from having a really deep focus in the same way that a lot of the top tier decks have. So it's a tough spot to be in until there's like the commander itself on paper is wildly strong, insanely busted, really, really, really cool. But I just don't know if we have the cards to support it right now at this moment in a way to build the list in a very, very fine-tuned, focused way. I think every list that you're going to see of this commander is going to be a little all over the place.
So where do you think it belongs?
I think it's a solid C tier. I don't think it's a D tier anymore. I do think it's improved since then. A lot of that is because, since in a year it has gotten more cards. I think it has been honed down a little bit by the pilots who do play it, but it still has that unfortunate setback in that the cards that we have don't support a way to play the deck in a way that's truly broken. Give us a whole lot more blue flickers and we'll talk.
My only pushback is it's similar to Minthara, where it hasn't been coming to events here.
Also true.
And it had. So I would personally put it in D until I start seeing it show up again. But I do see where you're coming from, that it has gotten a lot of new toys. Mm-hmm. So I could also see it in C as well. What are your thoughts, Franklin?
I like to see it in D because even though Rohan is saying, oh yeah, it keeps getting all these great tools, every other Dimir deck has been getting the same exact tools. And
That's
for spoilers for next week, I don't even think this is the best Dimir deck on this
not
list.
even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
Like, definitely it's not.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, we have Sphinx Summoner way up there in B, and Sphinx Summoner is a very...
And we still haven't talked about Val Agent.
Yeah, there's a few that we have left on the list.
And the spicy new one.
Yes, the new toys. Yes. But, I mean, with that said...
I'm okay with the D tier. It hasn't been showing up. I built a list a long time ago. I haven't even been playing it because... I don't know. I'm just not... I'm not excited to play it into the current meta at the moment.
But let's do the last one of the video for today, you guys. Zada. This one is long overdue on this list. This is one that we missed last time. Deck's fast. Deck is strong. If it starts showing up, it's going to fall right into the same boat with the low subordinate, the Dargo Kediss, all of them, right? It's just a solid aggro list.
Yeah, and the same thing that you mentioned earlier, where we've gotten to the point in the meta where Zada's no longer the scariest deck at the table. Because historically, that was an issue that Zada had, which is like, oh my god, you're playing Zada, we have to kill you first.
You're right. It's not the scariest deck. Traditionally, Zada has a play pattern that is extremely explosive, right? And almost all the Zada decks are built that way. I do know that, a few players out there, shout out to Stein, are testing slower variants like that are trying to do other things like pinger variants, like different play patterns that allow them to say like, hey, look, I'm not going to just like vomit all my whole deck in one turn. I am curious how good that other style of Zada is.
Well, to be fair, the ones that vomit, so one of our local players, he plays Zada. Mm-hmm. We've seen him draw 17 cards in one turn and whiff and just pass. Right? Like you can whiff. Like it is a real thing, right? You lose to some weird cards. Electrickery is not your friend.
Yeah.
Right?
All the board reps are brutal.
Yeah, so can it rebuild? Yeah, it has the ability. You could bully Zada off the table, but let's be honest. If we just look at S through C, if any of these decks are together, like if we take any combination of anything that's currently on the list, truth be told, any combination of 4 decks and we add Zada to any of these piles, you're terrified of everything there, right? Mm-hmm. Everything you're going to sit down and be like, Zada will not be scarier than an Alexios, right? You're like, oh, the Alexios is just going to murder us before Zada tries to combo off, right? Like, do its thing.
Or you're just like even more scared of Zada technically because Zada has the Alexios.
Yeah, well, Zada could also block the Alexios. So the only deck of the day was blocking, right? But low subordinate, it's like, yeah, this is great. Like, get him dead. I'm going to sit here and reap the benefits of you beating everyone to death, right? Mm-hmm. So I just don't. Zada is just one of these good commanders now. And I'll be honest, I don't know where to place this one, so I want to hear your guys' thoughts to see.
I don't know either. That's the weird thing. Like, I want to put it in either B or C. It just depends on the day. It depends on after they draw half the deck if they say move to combat or not.
Yeah, I mean, I personally want to put it in C. We have a Zada player locally, and I don't know if you guys, my first PDH deck or CPDH deck was Zada, which I played for like almost a whole year. It's one of the reasons why I don't feel there's like a few commanders. I played a lot of 4 CMC red commanders, mono red commanders, and it's a tough life out there if you're in that world. Any bounce spell ever, you're just like, no, everything I've worked for. You know, a stupid 1 mana like bounce spell. You're like, oh god, like you're sweating, and it just feels bad. Like that feels bad. Like I don't want that to make or break my victory. You know, with a deck, it sucks to be in that spot. As I'm pretty much at this point a dedicated Malcolm Breaches player, when I play our local Zada player, I just laugh to myself. I'm like, I love this matchup for me. It's a particularly easy one. It's to the point where I'm like, hey, I'll let you live so you can use your interaction to help me. And so it's that way I won't just kill you and prevent you from doing anything. So like, do my bidding. Thank you. And it works. And it's like, damn, dude.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Rough. Well, I mean, with that said, I'm cool with being in C.
I can't disagree with that.
I think the deck is still pretty good.
It's cool. I mean, it's cool as hell.
I've seen my buddy here locally just whiff on drawing 13 cards,
That's
17 cards. Just I actually got to the point when I'm playing my Dargo Keddis against it. I'm just like, I'm not even going to counter you. Just do your thing. Like, just do it. You kill me, you kill me. If not, I untap and win. So I'm not even burning my counter spell on you. Right? So
yeah, I think that's honestly the best mentality most people should play against Zada is like, let it see if it wins.
Yeah, let's see what it does. If it wins, it's going to be exciting, right? Like just that's
going to be the most uncompetitive thing we've ever said on this podcast. But you know what? That's also what you should be doing.
Yeah, the joke there for real.
Yeah,
but I mean, with that said, you know, I think it's a strong finish. I think we'll finish this one with C Zada. Like Zada is still, you know, an old scary. It's been around forever, so I really like the card, and I hope to see more of it.
I will say this one thing though about Zada, and it's not necessarily to do with PDH, but I think Zada is one of the decks that if you are interested in playing your Pauper deck at EDH tables, you know, on your regular casual EDH night, I think Zada is one of the best decks to bring to your regular EDH table.
I agree.
Yeah.
With that said, Franklin, do you want to take us home?
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the first part of our tier list. If you don't see your deck here, don't get discouraged. If anything, come join our Discord. Come join our Patreon. Talk to us. Say, hey, I want to vouch for this deck. Or you can come join there, play games against us. Say, hey, this is how you sell us on your deck. Just by telling us, like, hey, this is what it does. Let me show you. And that's how you will get onto here. If you made it this far as well, subscribe to us over on YouTube. Follow us over on Spotify. We're over on TikTok. We have a Blue Sky account now, too. We're on Twitter. And with that, thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a good day. Wow, I suck at talking today. Thanks, Izlain.
You better leave that in, Izlain.
Shout out to all of our patrons. Eric, Aaron, Dax, Devin, NYC Burrito, Little Rat Lotad, Frank, Scoob, HZ, and William. Thank you for all of your support.